Dreamland Encounters takes us back to a pivotal moment in UFO lore. On a cool September night in 1961, an ordinary couple's late-night drive along a quiet New Hampshire highway would become anything but ordinary. Betty and Barney Hill weren't seeking fame or looking to make headlines. They were simply two people living their lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, unaware that their experience would become one of the most discussed alien encounter cases in history. Betty, a college-educated social worker, was known for her sharp mind and compassionate nature. Her work in welfare and family counseling demanded both discipline and empathy. Barney, her husband, was equally remarkable, a World War II veteran working for the Postal Service and deeply committed to civil rights. Their interracial marriage stood as a testament to their strength during a tumultuous time in American society. Their story doesn't begin with dramatic alien encounters, but with a routine road trip through New England's green landscapes. They were just two people navigating life together, unaware of the extraordinary events that would soon unfold. Were they truly taken aboard an extraterrestrial craft? Or was something else happening? Something beyond our current understanding? The truth remains tantalizingly unclear. This is part of our Unknown series, designed to guide you gently into the mysteries that lurk just beyond our everyday perception. What do you believe happened that night? The comments are waiting for your thoughts. Betty and Barney Hill's relationship was rare for their time, especially in conservative New England. Their connection went beyond typical boundaries, built on shared values and mutual respect, with a dream of a quiet life together. Social pressures of the era couldn't diminish their bond. Road trips became their sanctuary. Long weekends offered escape from daily tensions and postal routes, allowing them to connect freely. Their travels weren't new. They'd explored coastlines, mountains, and even ventured into Canada, always accompanied by Delhi, their small dachshund mix with wide, curious eyes. They were a tight-knit family in constant motion. September 1961 brought a spontaneous trip to Niagara Falls in Montreal. Betty had time off, and Barney, exhausted from long shifts, welcomed the break. Their packing was simple: one suitcase, Betty's yellow raincoat, a camera, binoculars, and a travel guide. Their 1957 Chevrolet Bear, cream-colored and well-maintained, hummed with familiar reliability. Vermont's landscape was transforming, leaves beginning to hint at approaching autumn. Montreal's streets and falls provided a leisurely backdrop to their journey. The radio played softly, and no urgency disturbed their peaceful travel. Their return trip began on the night of September 19th. Barney planned to drive straight through New Hampshire's Franconia Notch, a route known for winding roads, towering pines, and vast wilderness. Their calculation was straightforward. A 6-hour drive would get them home by 2:03 in the morning. Allowing for a late sleep the next day, they'd crossed back into the United States at Derby Line, Vermont, heading south on US Route 3. The road gradually narrowed, cutting through quiet towns and past sleepy farmhouses where darkness fell early. Delhi slept peacefully in the back seat while the landscape slowly shifted around them. Barney and Betty drove through the night, taking turns behind the wheel as they wound their way through the White Mountains. The landscape around US Route 3 was vast and deeply forested, with miles stretching out seemingly endless before them. Outside Lincoln, New Hampshire, they switched drivers, and by 10 p.m. the night had settled into a quiet rhythm. The sky above was crystal clear, stars burning brightly against the darkness. Their radio drifted between stations, creating a gentle background noise that somehow felt peaceful. They were traveling through a world stripped of usual distractions. No traffic, no streetlights, just the soft hum of tires against pavement. Betty sorted through postcards she hadn't yet written, and they laughed about a Montreal waiter who had playfully teased Barney's accent. Yet beneath their casual conversation, something unspoken lingered. An undefined tension hummed just out of reach, like static at the edge of perception. The road itself seemed to embody this feeling. Headlights only penetrated a small distance into the surrounding darkness, and familiar routes took on an unfamiliar character at night. The White Mountains pressed close, ancient and silent, with US Route 3 curving through valleys and ridges with minimal landmarks. They passed the Indian Head Resort, its sign glowing faintly in the distance. Just ahead lay Franconia Notch, a narrow mountain pass known for its sharp turns and towering rock faces. This remote stretch was precisely where they needed to be before descending into southern New Hampshire. Just past 10:30 p.m., Betty glanced up. Nothing seemed unusual, just an endless road and a sky filled with stars. The headlights carved a narrow path through the darkness, with dense trees rising like silent sentinels on either side. They had crossed the Canadian border less than 2 hours earlier, now threading through this majestic, eerily still landscape. The windows were cracked just enough to let in the crisp mountain air. For now, it was simply a peaceful drive, though something waited just beyond the edge of their awareness. The car hummed steadily along the winding road, engine noise mixing with soft radio static. Barney kept his eyes fixed on the turns ahead, his hands firmly gripping the steering wheel. They hadn't encountered another vehicle in nearly 20 minutes. Betty rested her elbow against the window, her chin nestled in her hand. Night drives always brought her a sense of quiet peace, something unspoken and intimate about the way the world seemed to pause in darkness. But tonight felt different. A strange heaviness hung in the air, as if the road itself was holding its breath. Through the passenger window, a point of light caught her attention. Brighter than a star, it moved in a way that seemed unusual. At first, she thought it might be a plane. "There's something out here," she said, pointing. Barney glanced briefly. "Probably a commercial flight from Montreal," he dismissed, continuing to drive. Yet the light behaved oddly. It didn't fade like a typical aircraft would. Instead, it shifted and changed direction, moving too slowly and lacking the expected navigation lights. Betty watched intently. "It's not going away," she said more firmly. Barney suggested it might be a satellite. Reasonable enough given the era of spaceflight and the ongoing Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. But Betty remained unconvinced. This object didn't move like a satellite. It zigzagged, then hovered, seeming to keep pace with their car. As the terrain gently rose, Betty rolled down the window, leaning out for a better view. The object grew larger and brighter, gliding with an eerie, controlled silence. No engine sound, no disturbance, just an unsettling presence in the night sky. Barney's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He'd noticed it too, but said nothing, watching the strange light continue its mysterious dance across the dark landscape. Barney slowed the car, pulling off to a small scenic turnout used by tourists during the day. Gravel crunched beneath the tires as they came to a stop. He stepped out, walking a few feet ahead and looking up. The light was moving slowly, deliberately from west to east. Betty remained inside, gripping the door frame. Barney retrieved binoculars from the back seat and scanned the sky. Through the lenses, the shape began to resolve. It wasn't just a light, it was structured, metallic, wide, with small red lights along its edge. Windows were visible, and behind them figures stood watching. This was different from anything Barney had encountered before. He'd served in the war, worked long hours at the post office, and endured countless indignities as a black man in 1960s America. But something about this moment set off a silent alarm. "It's not a plane," he said quietly. They resumed driving, both alert and watching the sky. The object seemed to pace them, disappearing behind the trail line only to reappear between each curve of the narrow road. Deli, their dog, stirred nervously in the back seat, sensing the tension. As they neared Twin Mountain, the light swept sharply left, cutting across the road in a low arc before vanishing over the trees. Betty and Barney gasped simultaneously, a heavy silence growing between them. "Should we stop again?" Betty asked softly. Barney nodded. "Not here. Let's find somewhere open." They continued driving, searching for a clearing as the forest seemed to close in. The road remained deserted, nearly midnight approaching. Soon they would find that clearing. Soon Barney would stop again. And what he would see in that next moment would change everything. The night highway stretched before them, a path of uncertain destiny. Barney stopped the car in a small gravel turnout where trees opened up just beyond a curve. He killed the headlights but left the engine running, its soft hum a counterpoint to the silence. The object in the sky was no longer a distant, uncertain light. It was deliberate now, hovering with an almost calculated movement. Deli, their dog, sat upright in the back seat, head tilted with an almost human-like awareness. Betty remained in the car, door open, her eyes fixed on the sky above the tree line. Barney stepped out, binoculars already in hand. The cool air was still charged with an unspoken tension. His steps were measured, cautious, but not afraid. Before him, the road bent away and disappeared into the woods, but overhead, something hung motionless. Approaching the clearing's edge, he raised the binoculars. The object was now unmistakably a craft, silent, broad, metallic. Roughly 100 feet above ground, its details became startlingly clear. A flattened disc wider than his home, with a curved row of rectangular windows glowing from within. Behind those windows, shapes moved. 8 to 11 figures, though the exact number never felt certain. One figure stood out, seemingly fixed, watching him directly. Barney felt an odd pressure in his chest, not fear, but a profound recognition. He was not observing, he was being observed. In that silent moment, a thought arrived with absolute clarity. They're not human. The conclusion was quiet, certain, heavier than any dramatic revelation. Through the binoculars, he watched as the figure raised what looked like an arm pulling something down. Suddenly, 2 red lights extended from the craft's sides, like wings or strange appendages. Something fundamental was shifting. They were redefining their understanding of everything they thought they knew. Now he lowered the binoculars and started walking back briskly, careful not to show panic. The entire object had shifted slightly toward him. That was enough. Back at the car, his face told a different story. No outward alarm, but his features were drawn tight and unreadable. He simply told her the situation had become dangerous, offering no further details. When she asked what he had seen, he remained focused, eyes ahead, and started the engine. The tires moved softly over gravel as they turned onto the highway. He didn't look back. Silence filled the car, broken only by the engine's hum and the faint swaying of trees in the night breeze. The road looked unchanged, but something felt different. The world no longer seemed normal. Then came the noise. Short, precise mechanical beeping tones rang through the vehicle, coming in pairs. 3 seconds of sound, then silence, then another, identical set. The car trembled, subtle vibration, as if something unseen had passed through it. The air briefly felt denser, almost humid, and then just as quickly it was gone. Neither spoke. What happened next would be harder to explain. Betty would later describe a shift in perception, not sleep, not unconsciousness, but a feeling of being untethered. The road ahead became strange. Landmarks appeared and disappeared unpredictably. Time itself felt fluid, with entire stretches seeming to dissolve without warning. Barney's memory was foggy. He remembered steering, seeing road lines, but felt strangely disconnected from the motion. A sharp turn around a bend stood out, yet he couldn't recall what came before or after. It was like driving inside a dream, aware of action, but without understanding its sequence. Deli had grown tense. The dog shifted positions constantly, sometimes whining softly, other times sitting rigid, eyes fixed toward the car's rear. She never barked, but never settled. Then came a second set of tones, 2 identical beeps. The same cabin pressure, the same slight car shudder, the same sensation of space folding and releasing. And just like that, everything resumed. Dashboard lights returned to normal. The road felt ordinary again. Darkness returned to the trees. After 1 a.m., Betty looked at the clock. The silence that had enveloped them began to lift, and she noticed a strange physical sensation, as if the world had resumed without her fully returning. She spoke softly, almost to herself, unsure if it was a thought or a statement. Barney responded, suggesting they were nearly home. Betty glanced behind them once more. The road remained empty. No lights followed, no craft appeared above, but the feeling hadn't left. They were moving, yet not entirely returned. Deli lay down, her head still upright and alert. Silence and small details filled the moments that followed. Barney's hands gripped the steering wheel. Quiet wind notes moved across the windshield. Betty reached for her notepad, scribbling impressions more than sentences. Buzzing, turned, sky, pressure. Her writing was uneven, her hand shaking slightly. She thought of the object, how it had tilted toward them, not by accident, but as a deliberate act, of the shapes in the windows, of the moment Barney felt something deeper than fear. They're not human. Familiar road markers began to reappear. Small signposts, and known curves shape. The air's smell returning to something recognizable. They were getting close, but something remained behind them. Not on the road or in the sky, but inside the gap where their memory used to be. Just after dawn, the Hills arrived home. The sky was pale, washed in the colorless haze of early morning. The street outside their modest Portsmouth house was still and quiet. The town was just beginning to stir, porch lights dimming, newspapers landing on doorsteps. For Betty and Barney, time moved differently now. The drive from northern New Hampshire should have taken no more than 4 hours, even with brief stops. Yet the car's clock read 5:15 a.m. That alone didn't. They were deeply confusingly tired. Their first instinct was not to question, but to retreat inside, unpack, and sleep. Something about their return didn't feel routine. Barney unlocked the front door. Betty followed, carrying only her handbag. Jelly, unusually quiet, walked in behind them without hesitation. They returned from something more than a weekend trip, carrying nothing with them. No suitcase, no clothes, no travel books. Moving through the house almost silently, they seemed guided by some unspoken instinct, each heading to separate rooms. Barney stood in the bathroom, staring at his reflection. Exhaustion etched deeper than ever before. He touched his face and rubbed his temples. Red marks caught his attention, small circular spots along his neck and lower abdomen that he hadn't noticed before. In the bedroom, Betty removed her dress. The hem near her knees was torn jaggedly, as if recently damaged. A fine, pinkish powder covered the back in an oddly uniform pattern. She brought the dress to her nose. No strong odor, but something felt unsettling. Without fully understanding why, she decided not to wash it. Downstairs, Barney examined his shoes by the door. Despite wearing them only during the trip, mostly while driving, the leather looked severely scuffed and scraped, as though dragged through gravel. He couldn't recall any walking that would cause such damage. The last portion of their drive home remained frustratingly unclear. The minutes or hours after hearing strange beeping sounds felt hazy, not completely blank, but somehow unreachable. After a short nap, they met in the kitchen, each holding a cup of coffee in the quiet house. Neither seemed ready to discuss what had happened. They talked about calling in sick and agreed not to mention anything to anyone outside the family. Not yet. Later that day, Betty called her sister Janet. She described the light in the sky, strange movements, and the sounds they'd heard. Janet listened carefully and then suggested something significant. "You should call the Air Force." Betty hesitated but wrote down the number for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That evening, she called and reported a sighting, an unidentified aerial object near Indian Head. She detailed its movement, size and position without mentioning beings or missing time. The duty officer was polite, asked basic questions, and promised follow-up. 2 days later, Major Paul Henderson called. He asked Betty to describe everything again in more detail, sounding professional yet curious. She complied, repeating her account carefully. Betty and Barney's encounter with an unexplained phenomenon remained largely mysterious. Their recollection of time and events was fragmented and incomplete. After their experience, hours seemed to vanish without explanation. A 30-minute drive had inexplicably stretched into 2 hours, with no clear account of what happened during that lost time. The road trip's details were elusive. Betty attempted to reconstruct their journey, creating maps and timelines. Yet no matter how she arranged the information, critical moments remained unaccounted for. They couldn't recall passing through towns or seeing any landmarks. Only disconnected memories and an unsettling silence remained. In the aftermath, Betty experienced a persistent sense of unease. It wasn't pure fear, but a lingering discomfort that permeated her thoughts. Her nights became troubled by vivid dreams that began about 10 days after their return. Initially, she didn't connect these dreams to their mysterious journey. Over 5 consecutive nights, the dreams grew increasingly detailed and disturbing. She found herself on an unknown craft, surrounded by beings who communicated without words. Barney was present but distant. Each morning, she meticulously recorded these experiences. Barney's behavior changed dramatically. He became withdrawn and irritable, avoiding discussions about their encounter. At night, he began grinding his teeth, a new and unusual behavior. He experienced fleeting, strange sensations that he described as fragmented images. Seeking understanding, Betty borrowed a UFO book from the local library, written by Donald Coe, a retired Marine Corps major and director of NICAP. She wrote to the organization detailing their experience, including the timeline, craft movements, and her dreams. The incident would be reported to Project Blue Book, the U.S. Air Force's investigation program for unidentified aerial phenomena. Officially, it remained unexplained. No aircraft, weather balloons, or radar anomalies were detected in the area. Yet for Betty and Barney, the real story remained deeply personal and unresolved. Not he would meet with them. The Hills had agreed. This meeting marked the start of something more, a shift from quiet confusion toward a more structured approach. Yet before investigators arrived, before interviews and transcripts and hypnosis, there was simply this: the long silence after the drive, the lingering question of what they had lost and what might have been taken. They had returned home physically intact. No injuries, no bruises, but they were not quite the same. Chapter 5. Betty's dreams began 3 nights after their return. Sleep was difficult. Initially, there were no nightmares, just restlessness. In the early hours, she would lie awake, her mind circling the same uncertainties. The missing time, the silence in the car, the 2 sets of tones that seemed to bookend something unremembered. Stretches of road, landmarks, conversations, all absent. Where memory should have existed, something else had taken root. A quiet, steady attention, like a low hum beneath waking life. On the 3rd night, she finally drifted into deep sleep. The dream started abruptly. Betty and Barney walked through a dark forest, guided by small, silent figures moving ahead. The trail was narrow and unfamiliar, the sky deeply black, illuminated by sparse stars. These figures were not children, their heads were too large, their movements too smooth. Clad in tight-fitting grey or beige uniforms, they moved with purpose. Betty and Barney remained silent, but aware of each other. The figures led them up a small ramp into a craft nestled among the trees, metallic, round, faintly glowing along its seams. Inside, soft, sourceless light filled the space. The air felt sterile, yet breathable. Almost immediately, Betty was separated from Barney. 2 beings guided her to a room. One, taller and seemingly in charge, commanded respect through silent deference. This being made her feel calm, even comforted. Communication happened not through words, but through complete, fully formed thought impressions. She wasn't afraid, only deeply curious. In this room, something resembling a medical examination took place. She was asked or felt compelled to sit on a surface. Not she first noticed their hands touching her skin, exploring her limbs, and pressing an unfamiliar device against her abdomen. A needle slid into her navel, causing a sharp but brief pain. When she flinched, a being raised its hand toward her head, and the pain vanished instantly. This didn't feel like aggression to her. Instead, it seemed clinical and detached, yet not cruel. Something calculated and precise. Betty asked about their origin. In response, the taller figure turned to a flat, dark panel along the curved wall. With a single smooth gesture, the panel emitted, revealing a field of glowing points suspended in space. Initially, she thought it might be decorative, but as she studied the pattern, it began to make sense. Some points were larger and more pronounced, while others formed intricate web-like connections between stars. The map was 3-dimensional, despite appearing on a flat surface. Certain lines connected stars in ways suggesting intentional travel routes. A central cluster emerged where multiple lines converged. Betty intuitively sensed this might represent their home or origin, though no labels existed. Leaning forward, she tried to memorize every detail of the configuration. Again, she asked quietly about their current location. The being didn't point or speak. Instead, a thought entered her mind, direct and matter-of-fact. Understanding their current position required first understanding one's own place in the cosmos. Earth's perspective wasn't something she could grasp without knowing her spatial coordinates. The meaning wasn't entirely clear, but the moment remained vivid in her memory. She awoke suddenly. Darkness surrounded her. This dream felt different, complete and structured. Unlike typical fragmented dreams, it had a clear beginning, progression, and conclusion. Remaining still, she mentally replayed the experience. Then she sat up, switched on the light, and began writing. Over the next 4 nights, similar dreams continued. Each felt like another chapter of the same event. Details remained consistent. The beings, the ship, the examinations, the star map. and the communication that bypassed traditional language. In one dream, she observed Barney on a separate table, eyes closed, being examined by a different group. He seemed unaware of her presence, and she was prevented from approaching him. The beings that visited Betty appeared in dreams, with a precision that defied military structure. Their communication was wordless, conveying only calm and safety. They had distinctive features: smooth gray-beige skin, large heads, wide slanted eyes, and small, unused mouths. Their limbs were long and thin, hands possessing fewer than 5 fingers, possibly 3, each being moved with a habitual, coordinated purpose that suggested something beyond human organization. After 5 consecutive dreams, Betty meticulously compiled her notes into a coherent narrative. One morning in the kitchen, she read her account aloud to Barney, who sat silently with a cooling mug of coffee. He didn't interrupt or reject her story, but he offered no additional details either. Barney's memories were fragmented, fleeting images of a figure in a craft's window, red extending lights, and an overwhelming sense of encountering something profoundly non-human. He respected Betty's growing conviction but remained unsettled. For him, these experiences were mere echoes, not answers. Betty's perspective differed entirely. She believed these weren't symbolic dreams, but genuine memories emerging naturally with time. While she didn't claim complete understanding, she felt certain about what she had witnessed: the beings, their ship, a star map, and an unspoken message. His silence grew not from resistance, but from deep uncertainty. Barney felt responsible for protecting and grounding Betty, yet he couldn't explain their shared experience. Her increasing clarity only highlighted what he had lost: a sense of order, safety, and understanding of the world's mechanics. The dreams ceased after the 5th night, but their impact persisted. Betty had seen something, whether memory or imagination, that was now intrinsically part of their shared story. In subsequent weeks, she would gradually begin discussing her experiences with UFO investigators, moving from informal conversations to more urgent communications. For now, she kept her writings close. The dreams remained vivid yet private, belonging solely to her. Each morning, as she reread her notes, one cryptic sentence resonated repeatedly: "If you don't know where you are, it won't help you to know where we are." Otter Poplar's return home was marked by strange observations. In the bathroom, Barney scrutinized his shoes. The soles were worn unevenly, and he couldn't recall walking extensively. Large gaps existed in his memory of the previous night. Betty stood by the bed, her blue dress in hand, tears near the hem, and thin triangular cuts along the zipper caught her attention. The fabric felt different, stiffer in certain spots, as if something had altered its texture. Their drive back to Portsmouth had been silent, street lamps emerging as dawn approached. Neither felt rested. That morning, another peculiarity surfaced. Their watches had stopped completely. Both timepieces were frozen at 3:07 a.m., unresponsive to winding or tapping. Betty began meticulously documenting their experience. Her journal captured every detail: their departure from Colebrook, the first glimpse of an unusual light, and subsequent strange sensations. She included sketches and dream impressions. Barney participated reluctantly, acknowledging feelings of anxiety and chest tightness. Days later, Betty discovered a fine pinkish powder on her dress, particularly near the torn areas. This wasn't ordinary dust, it shimmered uniquely and dispersed in small clouds when shaken. She carefully preserved some residue in a sealed bag and stored the dress separately. Years afterward, independent laboratories examined the dress. Preliminary tests revealed unusual chemical degradation in areas with the pink powder. The findings suggested exposure to an unidentified synthetic or biological substance, unlike anything typically found in terrestrial environments. Traces of unexpected proteins were detected, hinting at something beyond conventional scientific understanding. Incident: Barney examined their 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. At first, everything looked normal. No external damage was visible, and there were no signs of contact. But when he opened the trunk, something unusual caught his eye. The rear trunk lid had a series of circular, shiny spots, each about the size of a coin. These weren't there before. They were perfectly round, slightly raised, and arranged in a pattern that seemed random. Curious, Barney tried rubbing one with his finger. It didn't smudge, wasn't sticky or burned. just different. Betty, equally intrigued, grabbed a hiking compass from a nearby drawer. As she held it over the trunk, the needle began to spin. Not wildly, but noticeably. The closer the compass got to the shiny spots, the more erratic its movement became. They tested another compass, getting the same result. When moved away from the trunk, the compass stabilized immediately. These spots, whatever they were, appeared to interfere with magnetic fields. This was the moment they decided to seek outside help. Betty wrote to NICAP, a civilian UFO research group known for thorough investigations and connections to former military personnel. She detailed the night's events, their missing time, and the physical evidence they'd collected, including observations about their dress, watches, and the compass test. NICAP responded quickly, sending investigators to interview the Hills. Walter Webb, the assigned field investigator, spoke with Betty and Barney separately and then together. His report found both individuals sincere, articulate, and clearly troubled. He noted they seemed reluctant to publicize their experience and had nothing to gain by fabricating the story. Webb documented the magnetic anomalies on the car, photographed the dress, and recorded their testimony in detail. While NICAP couldn't immediately explain everything, they considered the case significant and worthy of further study. Meanwhile, Barney's health began to change. He started experiencing vivid, fragmented dreams, images of being watched, surrounded, or moved. Circular patches developed on his body, adding another layer of mystery to their already extraordinary experience. By 1964, the uncertainty had settled into their daily lives like a quiet residue. Betty and Barney Hill still spoke of the night in fragments. They could recall the lights, the beeping ones, the strange feeling of fog between thoughts, but what actually happened during the missing time was still locked away. Betty's dreams offered vivid, unsettling detail, but Barney had remained guarded. He had no dreams, only feelings and a silence inside him that wouldn't lift. It was Betty who first suggested they seek help, not from a UFO researcher or a journalist, but from a physician, someone trained to work with the mind. Their home was still the same. Their dog still barked at the mailman. The phone still rang in the early evenings, but inside drawers, sealed in bags and hidden in bedside notebooks, were fragments of something else, something they had touched, seen, or carried back with them. They didn't know what it meant, but they knew it had happened. Eventually, the weight of the mystery would lead them to seek professional help. But that moment was still ahead. For now, they lived in a house where the ordinary had been quietly replaced by the unexplained. Betty began reading more about other UFO reports, reaching out to researchers, and comparing what had happened to them with other sightings across the country. What she found disturbed her even more. Other people had reported strange lights in the sky. Other people had felt missing time, but no one seemed to have the same volume of physical traces, the wear on the shoes, the dust on the dress, the malfunctioning timepieces. It wasn't just the experience, it was the aftermath. As more days passed, Betty began to feel a growing urge to understand the dreams. The evidence, it couldn't all be imagination. They had strong memories of the craft itself. Barney's sighting through the binoculars, the red lights extending like wings. But what came after was a fog, a block, and yet the physical traces remained. The broken watches, the torn dress, the compass spinning above the trunk. He grew more anxious and withdrawn. They noticed him clenching his jaw at night. He had begun grinding his teeth in his sleep. He also began to fear falling asleep in the dark. At first, he dismissed it as stress, but the feeling persisted. The more they talked about the event, the more they realized how much they didn't know. He had skin with small wart-like growths near his groin, which doctors could not clearly identify. The physical evidence continued to puzzle them, a constant reminder of an experience they could not fully comprehend. Benjamin Simon, a respected Boston psychiatrist with expertise in treating veterans' psychological trauma, approached the Hills case with a methodical and balanced perspective. A former Army neurologist, he was both skeptical and open-minded. What truly intrigued Simon wasn't the UFO narrative itself, but the underlying emotional complexity and unresolved anxiety that persisted 3 years after the alleged event. In early 1964, the Hills agreed to meet with him. Simon's approach was deliberate. He first met with the couple together, then conducted individual interviews. His office, warmly lit and lined with books, provided a comfortable setting for their discussions. As he listened to their account, he carefully observed their demeanor. noting Betty's confident manner and Barney's restrained discomfort. His initial assessment was clear. These were not delusional individuals. They appeared coherent, intelligent, and genuinely distressed by an experience they couldn't comprehend. A series of hypnotic regression sessions followed over several months. Simon's methodology was strict. He kept the sessions completely separate, ensuring neither Betty nor Barney could hear or read the other's recordings or transcripts. This approach allowed each account to emerge independently. Barney was the first to undergo hypnosis. As he entered a light trance, remarkable changes occurred. His voice became softer, more childlike and hesitant. He gripped the chair's arms, his breathing shallow as memories surfaced. He described seeing non-human figures in a window, stepping out of the car with binoculars, and walking across a clearing. A structured craft hovered low, with a curved row of windows. Inside, he perceived 8 to 11 figures, though the number fluctuated in his recollection. One being seemed to watch him directly. "I try to run," he said, "but my legs don't move right. I'm not running. I'm being moved." Simon maintained a calm, steady voice, gently guiding Barney's narrative. Barney explained, feeling pulled forward by an inexplicable force, as if gravity had shifted. Once inside the craft, he was separated from Betty. The beings communicated wordlessly, calming him through thought. In the craft's room, a cold metallic table awaited him. His shoes were laid down with arms at his sides. He experienced instruments passing over his body. Something touched his head, creating a buzzing sensation inside his skull. Not painful, but pressureful. Not Barney's first session revealed a deeply unsettling experience. His emotional response was raw and unfiltered. "They're staring at me," he whispered, trembling. "Their eyes are huge, wrap around. I can't look at them. They're going into me." He began to sob, overwhelmed. Simon paused the session, recognizing the intensity of Barney's reaction. This wasn't something easily faked. Over subsequent sessions, more details emerged. Barney remained consistent, his account delivered with reluctant, emotional vulnerability. Betty's hypnosis sessions told a parallel story. She found herself back on the wooded road, recording lights and distant movement. The memory of being taken from the car was not violent, but firm. She felt herself floating, moved without personal control. Inside the craft, she was guided down a curved, narrow corridor. The lighting was soft, the air still. She described the beings, tall, with grayish skin, large eyes and thin arms. They didn't seem threatening. One, in particular, appeared almost strange instruments were used to examine her. A curved device moved across her abdomen. A needle was inserted into her navel, causing her to cry out in pain. Instantly, the leader's hand near her forehead eliminated the discomfort. "We're just checking," they told her. Under hypnosis, she repeatedly described a star map, a three-dimensional pattern of dots and lines floating on a black panel. When she asked where they were from, their cryptic response was, "If you don't know where you are, it won't help you to know where we are." Simon meticulously recorded these sessions. Betty's voice remained steady throughout her accounts. Over weeks, he collected hours of recordings. Crucially, Betty and Barney had never heard each other's testimonies, yet their stories aligned precisely, from environmental details to the craft's shape, the being's silence, and the physical procedures. As a rationalist, Simon approached the accounts carefully. He believed the psychological trauma was real. The anxiety, repressed memories, and emotional intensity pointed to a profound experience, while he didn't affirm the literal reality of an abduction. His clinical notes were clear. These individuals are not fabricating. Their distress is genuine. The content may be shaped by suggestion, but the emotional impact is undeniable. Labor, emotional responses felt authentic, yet the underlying cause remained elusive. Was this a shared hallucination, a complex psychological defense mechanism, or something real and deliberate, as Betty believed? Simon left the question open. After the sessions, Barney experienced a noticeable shift. His anxiety lessened, and he stopped grinding his teeth at night. Although he rarely spoke about the experience, his mood improved, and he gradually returned to his routines. Betty's perspective took a different path. The hypnosis sessions reinforced her long-held convictions. These weren't mere subconscious echoes, but genuine memories. She meticulously transcribed the sessions, compiling them into a manuscript that would later become a book. Her approach to discussing the experience changed. She now spoke with greater clarity and purpose. For Simon, this case would stand alone in his professional career. Years later, he would reflect that while he couldn't prove an abduction occurred, he couldn't dismiss the story's consistency, emotional depth, or the profound way it had transformed two people deeply connected to each other. In the margins of his transcripts, haunting phrases remained underlined. "They're not human. I try to run, but I'm not running. Their eyes go into me. If you don't know where you are, it won't help you to know where we are." Weeks after her hypnosis, Betty focused on organizing her memories. One detail stood out with remarkable clarity. A star map she had seen under hypnosis, not in a dream. She described it as a three-dimensional chart of destinations. The being she called the leader had pointed to it when she asked about their origin. The idea, say now, of the region. Gesture felt informative, not dismissive. The map appeared on a black surface inside the craft. Dozens of glowing points of light, varying in size, were connected by fine lines. Many lines converged around a central cluster, suggesting a deliberate, structured representation of something beyond human understanding. Betty sat down at her dining room table after sessions with Dr. Simon, pencil and paper spread before her. She tried to recreate from memory a map she had seen. Sketching carefully, the result was deceptively simple. 26 dots of varying sizes connected by single and double lines. To her, the structure felt meaningful, almost like a minimalist constellation diagram. She had no astronomy training and knew nothing about distant stars or galactic layouts. Yet she preserved the sketch, filing it meticulously among her papers, uncertain if it would ever hold significance for anyone else. Years later, in 1968, the drawing caught the attention of Marjorie Fish, an Ohio schoolteacher and amateur astronomer. Fish was a logical, methodical researcher and APRO member. When she read about Betty's star map in a NICAP report, her interest was piqued not by alien beliefs, but by the potential to test the claims scientifically. Fish launched her own investigation using astronomical data and star catalogs. Her approach was innovative. Instead of trying to locate Earth on the map, she asked from what galactic vantage point the pattern might make sense. This was a bold, unconventional strategy. Over several years, Fish constructed three-dimensional models of nearby stars using beads on wires. Each bead represented a star within 55 light-years of Earth, positioned precisely using astronomical coordinates. She examined these models from countless angles, searching for a configuration matching Betty's drawing. Her persistence paid off. Viewed from a specific binary star system Zeta Reticuli, a pair of sun-like stars about 39 light-years from Earth in the Reticulum constellation, the configuration aligned remarkably. Betty's map closely matched the actual arrangement of nearby stars, including many known to support planets or fall within habitable zones. Even the lines in her map seemed to correspond with unexpected accuracy. Some stars clustered tightly, others stretched outward like spokes from a hub. When asked where Earth was, the response came not through gesture, but through a profound thought. If you don't know where you are, knowing where we are becomes meaningless. Betty Fish documented her star route findings meticulously, presenting them to both scientific communities and UFO investigators. Her work quickly captured the attention of Terence Dickinson, an astronomer and computer scientist, who found her match intriguing enough to publish an analysis in the early 1970s. Dickinson highlighted something remarkable. Some stars in Betty's drawing were not publicly known in the early 1960s, with one star even remaining uncatalogued until after her hypnosis session. Supporters saw this as a breakthrough, suggesting Betty had unconsciously recalled genuine astronomical information she could not have consciously accessed. For believers, this wasn't just an interesting coincidence, but compelling evidence. Skeptics, however, viewed the conclusion differently. Carl Sagan was particularly critical, arguing that with sufficient dots and lines, any star pattern could be manipulated to resemble a known arrangement, especially without fixed scale or orientation. Sagan maintained that the Zeta Reticuli match was likely accidental and lacked the scientific rigor needed to be persuasive. Other skeptics suggested the map might have been influenced by Betty's existing interests. Her prior reading of UFO books could have unconsciously shaped her imagination, creating a pattern that seemed familiar in retrospect. Fish steadfastly defended her methodology, emphasizing that her models were constructed using neutral approaches without forcing a match. Her work gained significant recognition when Astronomy magazine published her findings in 1974, a rare moment of mainstream scientific engagement with UFO-related research. The article generated widespread discussion and remains a pivotal component of the Hill abduction narrative. Subsequent astronomical discoveries have complicated the original interpretation. Some stars once considered potentially habitable now seem less promising, while others previously overlooked have gained renewed scientific interest. Decades later, Betty Hill's star map continues to fascinate both believers and skeptics. For Betty, it was never about solving a puzzle, but simply recording a significant detail. A moment captured at her kitchen table that would spark decades of debate and scientific speculation. But she stood by its origin. Under hypnosis, she had seen something larger. The beings had shown it to her not as proof, but as communication, a gesture toward comprehension, however limited. Even in her later years, when asked about the match to Zeta Reticuli, she would smile gently and say, "I never tried to prove anything. I only told what I saw." In that quiet certainty, she remained unshaken. For nearly 4 years, the story of Betty and Barney Hill was confined to private circles, a strange narrative shared only with investigators, close family and medical professionals. But in October 1965, that containment ruptured. The first leak came through a newspaper article in the Boston Traveler, written by reporter John Util. The headline, "UFO Chiller, Did They Seize a Couple?" was bold and sensationalist enough to draw immediate attention. Though the Hills' names weren't printed, anyone connected to New England UFO groups knew exactly who the article was about. Within weeks, the couple found themselves at the center of a national media storm. Barney was deeply uncomfortable with the exposure, always more cautious and skeptical about their experience. The regression had helped explain his inner turmoil but not fully reconciled his doubts. Now he was being asked to relive that trauma in front of television cameras, journalists, and strangers. His fears ran deep. He worried about ridicule, how his co-workers at the post office might react, and how this could affect his standing in Portsmouth's civic organizations. As a black man in the 1960s, already navigating the complexities of interracial marriage and civil rights activism, being publicly labeled the man who saw aliens was not a title he wanted. Betty approached things differently. She was articulate, passionate, and resolute in her convictions. She had always believed in the reality of their experience. With hypnosis transcripts and star maps as support, she felt a responsibility to share the truth. Their contrasting responses became increasingly evident in public appearances. On talk shows and in interviews, Betty would speak freely, recounting her experience with unwavering confidence. Barney and Betty Hill's story unfolded through media attention and public fascination. Their names became widely known after Look magazine ran a detailed feature in 1966 describing their abduction account, regression therapy, and the surrounding controversy. Other publications followed suit. The New York Times, Saturday Evening Post, and Time magazine all carried mentions of their experience. UFO investigators from MICAP and OPRO debated the case intensely, with some calling it the most credible abduction account ever recorded. Not everyone was supportive. Skeptics, scientists, and columnists raised concerns about memory contamination, suggestibility under hypnosis, and media influence on perception. Some accused Betty of embellishing details or seeking attention. Others suggested Barney had internalized anxiety due to racial tensions and work stress, which manifested as hallucinations. The most significant public moment came in 1966 with the publication of The Interrupted Journey by John G. Fuller, written in collaboration with the Hills and Dr. Benjamin Simon. The book presented their full account, including hypnosis session transcripts and Betty's star map. It sold well and launched the Hills into the lecture circuit, with invitations from universities, UFO conferences, and talk radio. While public interest remained high, the US government stayed officially silent. However, declassified documents through the Freedom of Information Act revealed that both the FBI and CIA had opened files on the Hills shortly after media reports emerged. These weren't criminal investigations, but rather reflections of broader Cold War era curiosity about public reactions to unexplained aerial phenomena. A 1966 CIA memo noted that recent publicity had resulted in increased civilian reporting of unusual aerial activity in the Northeast Corridor. An FBI field office memo acknowledged potential psychological manipulation through mass media and suggested monitoring public reactions. Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation program, included a brief, inconclusive entry about the Hills, summarizing their reported experience and hypnosis sessions. Physical evidence aside, the Hills case was simply logged and retained as part of a broader analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena. By this point, Project Blue Book's mission had fundamentally changed. It was no longer about investigation, but about managing public perception during the Cold War. Their silence toward the case might have been less about disinterest and more about controlling the narrative. For Betty and Barney, this government response was frustrating but not unexpected. Betty especially believed officials knew far more than they admitted, often speculating that Air Force radar logs or satellite surveillance might have confirmed their experience. Yet no such documents were ever produced. In the years following their Interrupted Journeys publication, their public identities took shape differently. Barney largely stayed in the background, reluctantly giving interviews. His health deteriorated, with doctors linking high blood pressure and ulcers to stress. In 1969, just 3 years after the book's release, Barney died of a cerebral hemorrhage at 46. Betty continued alone, becoming a prominent figure. She spoke at conferences, corresponded globally with UFO researchers, and established herself in abduction studies. Over time, her reputation grew more complex. Additional sightings she reported met increasing skepticism, even from former supporters. Critics suggested embellishment, but Betty never wavered about her core experience. The first time was real, she'd tell reporters. Everything after that is up to people to believe. Their case transcended their personal story. It became a template for thousands of subsequent abduction accounts. The night drive, strange lights, missing time, medical examination, telepathic large-eyed beings, even hypnotic regression as a tool for exploring alien encounters traces back to Dr. Simon's sessions with Betty and Barney. Despite their significant impact, the official record remained frustratingly thin. Project Blue Book closed in 1969 without revisiting their case. FBI and CIA documents, now available through FOIA requests, offer only tantalizing hints. Not Barney Hill never sought the spotlight. After years of media scrutiny following the Interrupted Journey, he retreated from public attention, maintaining his postal work and daily routines. Yet the stress of his extraordinary experience began to take its toll in ways he could not escape. His health deteriorated markedly. Physicians noted his condition as stress-related, with surging blood pressure, severe ulcers, and persistent headaches. He started missing work, sleeping poorly, and growing increasingly irritable. Those close to him observed he seemed haunted not just by his memories, but by the relentless public attention. The regression sessions that had brought such clarity offered no peace. What had been a deeply personal trauma became public property, dissected by strangers and broadcast widely. The UFO encounter transformed from a private experience to a narrative owned by everyone but him. In early 1969, Barney collapsed at home and was hospitalized. A cerebral hemorrhage claimed his life on February 25th at age 46. The UFO community mourned more than just a witness. They lost a reluctant pioneer who had endured not only an extraordinary encounter, but the profound burden of sharing it. Betty remained in their Portsmouth home, surrounded by unchanged rooms, the tidy kitchen, astronomy books, and familiar living room couch. Yet everything felt different. The silence was now permanent, filled with memories of their shared experience that had fundamentally altered their lives. The Hills were the first to bring the word abduction into mainstream consciousness. They made people wonder if something might be looking back from the night sky. But they received no official confirmation, no apology, just a record number, a closed file, and a slow drift into folklore. In the years following Barney's death, Betty Hill became a prominent figure in the UFO community. She was more than just a speaker at conferences. Her mission expanded to giving interviews and corresponding with researchers nationwide. This wasn't about convincing skeptics. For Betty, it was about sharing her truth as she had lived it. She engaged with various platforms, appearing at APRA and NAP conventions, speaking with radio hosts, amateur investigators, and documentary filmmakers. These interactions often seemed to energize her, as if discussing her experiences kept Barney's memory and their extraordinary encounter alive. Yet her increasing visibility wasn't without consequences. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Betty reported additional UFO sightings. These ranged from minor observations like strange skylights to more complex encounters involving what she believed were repeated visitations by the same beings from her 1961 experience. Her growing claims began to fracture her audience's perception. Supporters saw her continued reports as evidence of an ongoing phenomenon, while critics, even those who had previously defended her, started questioning her credibility. The more she spoke, the more skeptics accused her of embellishment. It wasn't just that she believed. It seemed she saw alien influence everywhere. Within the UFO research community, concern grew. Researchers worried her later statements might undermine the original case's solid foundation of hypnosis records, physical traces, and sincere testimony. They advised caution, but Betty never recanted her experiences. Instead, she became more selective about what she shared publicly. Media coverage evolved accordingly. Early articles had approached her with cautious curiosity, while later pieces, especially in tabloid media, adopted a mocking tone. Betty transitioned from a serious witness to fodder for satire and late-night comedy. Despite the ridicule, Betty's core conviction never wavered. What she and Barney experienced that September night in 1961 was real. Not imagined, not dreamed, but real. She meticulously maintained her hypnosis transcripts, frequently revisited their interrupted journey, and stayed connected with Dr. Benjamin Simon until his passing night simple. Her story went far beyond the simple claim. Betty and Barney Hill never sought fame, but their encounter became a foundational narrative in UFO history. They spoke of an extraordinary experience that would reshape how people understood alien encounters. In their lifetime, they were left with profound questions. What had they seen? Why had it happened to them? These uncertainties haunted them, remaining unanswered during their years together. Yet their account persisted, documented through hypnosis tapes, government archives, and cultural memory. After Barney's death, Betty remained deeply connected to the UFO community, though she gradually stepped back from public events in the early 2000s. Her health slowly declined, and she was diagnosed with cancer in her early 80s. She passed away on October 17, 2004, at 85, outliving Barney by 35 years. During those decades, the world transformed dramatically. UFOs evolved from fringe curiosity to a global cultural phenomenon, generating television shows, movies, research organizations, and even congressional hearings. The Hills, however, remained pivotal. Two ordinary people who consistently maintained their extraordinary claim. Modern alien encounter narratives often unknowingly echo their original account. Concepts like missing time, large-eyed beings, star maps, and telepathic communication can be traced directly back to their experience. Some view them as deluded, others as pioneers. Long after their deaths, the Hill encounter continued to intrigue researchers. It became more than an isolated incident, a comprehensive case study fundamental to understanding alien abduction reports. Unlike many early UFO stories, their account possessed unusual credibility. First-hand testimony, recorded sessions, physical evidence, and documentation from both civilian and official sources. Their legacy persists not just in books or documentaries, but in the very language of extraterrestrial encounters. They challenged conventional understanding and ensured their experience would never be forgotten. Researchers in the 21st century found the Hill story an ideal candidate for re-evaluation, marked not by dramatic battles or glowing alien weapons, but by a quiet road, a strange object, and two people who returned fundamentally altered. Psychological analysis became one of the earliest modern reassessments. Papers published in the 2000s explored how hypnosis influences memory formation, with critics arguing that regression techniques could potentially implant false memories, especially when subjects experience high stress. This wasn't a novel theory, but the Hill case provided unprecedented depth of data. Dr. C. Susan Clancy, a Harvard psychologist, extensively documented false memory phenomena in abduction cases. Her book, Abducted: How People Come to Believe They Were Kidnapped by Aliens, used the Hill's experience as a prototype. She proposed that sleep paralysis, cultural influences, and hypnosis could generate vivid yet inaccurate recollections. Supporters of the Hill's credibility countered these claims, highlighting that their experience predated common alien narrative tropes. In 1961, no mainstream alien archetype existed. The grey beings with large eyes and wraparound heads were not yet cultural shorthand. If anything, the Hill's story helped shape that very imagery. Government documents released through FOIA in the 1990s and 2000 sparked another wave of interest. Internal memos from the CIA, FBI, and Air Force referenced the Hill case and explored broader public UFO interest. While no documents confirmed extraterrestrial contact, they revealed a significant pattern. The government was monitoring civilian reports more closely than previously acknowledged. Specific documents illustrated this point. A 1966 Air Force intelligence memo noted the Hill case as a key public interest point. Another documented a spike in Northeast UFO sightings following media coverage. A CIA Office of Scientific Intelligence memo suggested monitoring civilian abduction narratives, especially those with physical evidence, for potential psychological contagion. Some researchers interpreted these documents as quiet validation. The government might not have believed the Hills, but they took the case seriously enough to maintain detailed records. No, throughout the decades, UFO investigations evolved from secretive bureaucratic exercises to open, serious examinations. Military officials and researchers gradually shifted from dismissing such reports to seriously studying them. Navy aircraft footage released in 2020 and 21 by the Department of Defense marked a turning point. Congressional hearings followed, introducing terms like non-human biologics into official records. These developments sparked renewed interest in older cases like Roswell, Rendlesham, and the Hills encounter. The Hills story became more than just an isolated incident. Researchers began analyzing their experience through a broader lens, examining patterns across multiple UFO reports. Consistently, details about craft descriptions, beings, and telepathic communication appeared in later accounts from unconnected individuals. Scientific scrutiny continued. In 2019, a private research group re-examined Betty's preserved dress using scanning electron microscopy. They found unusual staining and chemical residues, though nothing conclusively extraterrestrial. Early investigators' observations about magnetic anomalies on the car trunk remained intriguing, with reproducible explanations still unclear. Psychological perspectives also evolved. Dr. Benjamin Simon, who originally treated the Hills, was praised for his professional approach. He consistently warned against drawing definitive conclusions, focusing on trauma treatment. Yet his recorded interactions revealed an underlying unease, particularly when listening to Barney's accounts. By the 2000s and 2010s, public discourse around unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, had dramatically transformed. A 2017 New York Times article about the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, brought these investigations into mainstream conversation. What was once relegated to fringe theorists became a topic discussed by military personnel, pilots, and lawmakers. The central question shifted from what happened to Betty and Barney to how does their experience fit into a broader pattern of unexplained encounters. Researchers debated whether the similarities across reports represented coincidence, collective imagination, Mace's committing time Mackay Salve. Researchers debated whether the similarities across reports represented coincidence, collective imagination, or evidence of a shared phenomenon. The Hill encounter had reshaped two lives, triggering a cascade of similar reports that would endure for 6 decades. What began as a UFO event gradually transformed into a profound human story, a case study in memory, trauma, belief, and cultural impact. By the 2000s, researchers started examining the encounter through multiple lenses. Academics in sociology and cultural studies cited the case in discussions of folklore, collective myth-making, and post-war anxiety. The narrative expanded beyond alien encounters, exploring deeper themes of fear, displacement, credibility, and the search for meaning. As an interracial couple in 1960s America, Betty and Barney Hill added layers of complexity to their extraordinary account. Their story resonated differently, no longer just about extraterrestrial contact, but about human experience. In 2021, the Smithsonian Channel featured their story prominently in a documentary series about credible UFO encounters. A Navy intelligence analyst captured the essence of their experience, stating simply, Whatever happened to Betty and Barney Hill, they believed it, and they never changed their story. This unwavering consistency might be the most compelling aspect of their account. Despite decades of public scrutiny, shifting cultural attitudes, and waves of support and skepticism, the Hills never recanted. Their story remained consistent: a quiet drive, a strange object, and the loss of something they never fully recovered: certainty. In an age of data and declassification, the Hill case continues to invite thought, not conclusion. No physical evidence emerged to close the case, no final reports settled the matter. Yet their journey, interrupted on a September night in 1961, left behind more than missing time. It created a cultural blueprint, a psychological question mark, a place in history neither of them had sought, but both carried. The fundamental question remains: what did they truly experience? The answer, after all this time, is still elusive, but perhaps it was never about conventional proof. Perhaps what mattered most was how the Hills, with all their ordinariness, became something extraordinary. Their journey was meant to be ordinary, a quiet drive home through the White Mountains. Betty and Barney Hill, rational and engaged people, had no idea their lives were about to change forever. The night was clear, the air cool, with a sense of routine and normalcy surrounding them. But something in the sky would unravel everything they understood about their world. From the moment Betty spotted the light, their perception shifted dramatically. They were intelligent, balanced individuals who suddenly found themselves confronting something inexplicable. Their memories would only emerge slowly, fragmented pieces revealed through hypnosis. What surfaced was not a story they wanted to tell, but one that pulled itself forward piece by painful piece. Betty's dreams became crucial, filled with vivid details of beings with large eyes and a star map foreign to Earth. Barney's account carried particular weight. A reserved, skeptical man with no prior interest in UFOs, he struggled deeply with the memories that surfaced. His recorded testimony captured raw, trembling fear the moment he felt utterly powerless before the ship and its unblinking eyes. When their story became public in 1965, reactions were mixed. Curiosity and cruelty intertwined, as some believed while others mocked. Yet the Hills remained consistent. They never embellished or retracted their account, which remained rooted in that same small window of time, those same few miles of highway. The scientific community remained divided. Was this a psychological event shaped by stress and cultural influences? Or had they genuinely encountered something beyond current understanding? Their experience challenged everything, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. What haunted them most was not just what happened, but the fundamental impossibility of explaining it. Their story stood as a testament to the unknown, a narrative that defied easy categorization or dismissal. The case of an encounter on a dark road remained unresolved, with evidence perpetually incomplete. Artifacts hinted at something extraordinary. Pink powder on Betty's dress, circular marks on their car, watches frozen in time, matching accounts under hypnosis, an achievement star map aligning with Zeta Reticuli, a celestial configuration unknown to most until years later. Their sincerity was raw and unwavering, even as skepticism grew. Yet counter-arguments emerged. The potential for suggestion during hypnosis, the rise of abduction narratives in popular culture, the possibility of false memories, and the human mind's tendency to construct meaning from trauma. The story lingered in the liminal space between known and unknown, neither proven nor disproven. Modern researchers continue exploring, examining the experience through diverse lenses: neurology, psychology, and a renewed spirit of open inquiry, bolstered by government UAP disclosures and changing cultural perspectives. At its heart, this was a deeply human narrative. Betty and Barney were not seeking fame or notoriety. They were simply two people confronting an inexplicable experience, meeting public scrutiny with courage and honesty. Their words became a language for experiences previously confined to shadows. Betty's defiant declaration, "I know what I saw. No one can take that from me," contrasted with Barney's terrified utterance under hypnosis, "Oh my God, they're going to capture us." These sentences encapsulated their journey, one of defiance, one of fear. Together they represent the complex human response to encountering the unknown, the delicate balance between belief and survival. Their interrupted journey became a collective story, not because everyone believed it, but because it refused to fade. It captured something fundamentally human: our struggle to understand experiences that defy conventional explanation. Today, their home in Portsmouth remains, a quiet New England house. Their archives reside in university libraries, their memories preserved in books, recordings, and documentaries, but their true legacy lives in the questions they provoked about our understanding of reality. Something happened on that quiet road, a mysterious encounter that left questions unanswered. The story of Betty and Barney Hill continues to intrigue and challenge our understanding. Some journeys are never meant to reach a definitive conclusion. Certain interruptions become permanent, creating spaces of profound uncertainty. In these gaps of disconnection, we discover room for wonder. Perhaps that wonder is the most significant legacy. Not about finding proof or absolute finality, but about the invitation to look up and ask deeper questions. Why did this happen? Did it happen again? No one has conclusively answered these questions, and maybe that's precisely the point. Thank you, dreamers, for joining us tonight. The Hill story remains an open narrative, inviting speculation and curiosity. If you found this account compelling, we encourage you to share your thoughts, like, and subscribe. We hope this story provided a moment of reflection and intrigue. Our Unknown series continues to explore these mysterious narratives, promising more fascinating journeys ahead. Until next time, getting a good night's sleep is all about creating the right environment and setting yourself up for success. Your bedroom should feel like a calm, peaceful sanctuary where your body and mind can truly relax. Temperature plays a big role. Most people sleep best when the room is cool, around 60-67 degrees Fahrenheit. Soft, breathable bedding makes a huge difference in comfort. Establishing a consistent bedtime routine helps signal to your body that it's time to wind down. This might include activities like reading a book, taking a warm bath, or doing some gentle stretching. Blue light from phones and screens can disrupt your natural sleep cycle, so try to avoid electronic devices for at least an hour before bed. When you finally drift off, dreams can be fascinating journeys through your subconscious. Some people remember their dreams vividly, while others rarely recall what happens during the night. Dreams can be strange, emotional, or sometimes feel incredibly realistic. They might reflect your daily experiences, fears, or hidden desires. Different sleep stages bring different types of dreams. During REM sleep, which typically happens about 90 minutes after you fall asleep, dreams tend to be more vivid and complex. Your brain remains active during this time, processing memories and emotions. Not all dreams make sense, and that's completely normal. They're like little movies playing in your mind that don't always follow a logical storyline. Creating a sleep-friendly environment isn't just about physical comfort. Managing stress, practicing relaxation techniques, and maintaining a consistent sleep schedule can all contribute to better rest and more interesting dream experiences.